Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm excited to be here today with my colleague and friend, Steve Horseman. Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much, Shana.
Yeah,
Good to be here.
We are going to be talking about a topic that many men have brought to me that is painful and confusing, which is when a woman says, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. And Steve is, Steve has done a lot of work with men over the years. Good guys to great men is the theme or the motto. And what I really appreciate about your work is that you're not giving quick fixes or rules or lines or ways for men to, prop themselves up and try to be someone who a woman would love. You are actually helping men become the man that they feel inspired by and that is in their own integrity. And, the benefit of that actually is that relationships go a lot better. So I want to thank you for being someone who goes to the heart of the matter and goes to the root and isn't trying to have men sell themselves and then lose themselves.
Perfectly said. Thank you for that. You know me so well. Yeah.
We have gotten to know each other quite well over
the we know each other pretty darn well.
Which is great. So where do you want to start with this topic? I mean, it's a big one and it goes deep and wide. What do you want men to know?
The first thing I always say to men when they hear that first level wounding that comes in, I love you, you're a great guy, but I don't feel romantic about you. I can't think about sex with you anymore. I don't have to have the feelings I used to have. I'm not in love. I need space to think about things and find myself. We don't have a connection anymore, and I just don't feel it. And I think we need time apart, right? All those words are, and as I say it, all the hairs go up on the back of guys' necks, and they get that shiver down their spine and the knot in their stomach. And I know this because I am that guy, right? That happened to me 8-9 years ago. And I don't apologize for bringing men into my community through that wound, which I jokingly call death by female. And it is there's a very hot pussy wound that makes a man feel rejected, inadequate, like a failure, feels like a pussy, if you will. The worst word a guy can be called in the locker room is pussy. You couldn't keep your woman, couldn't keep your family together, and all of those feelings of dread, which cause a man to do some of the stupidest things he's ever done in trying to save it, try to pull it out. And so that's what I want to talk about on today's call is why those feelings happen, what you should know about her, and what you should be thinking. So you start saying and doing things that are effective and productive, not just for the relationship to possibly recover, but for yourself. Right. And
which is a huge bookmark or key. I mean, maybe we go right into that, but maybe I like staying on the edges a little bit more before we dive into that, the deep inner wound. But when men come to you and they have heard that from their partner, I imagine most men come in the midst of that, right? Like many men who, if you're listening and you've heard this in the past, you might be thinking, oh, why did that happen? And how can that not happen again? But for men who come to you who are right in the midst of it, what do you have them do first?
Breathe, breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Because by the time they call me, men don't reach out for help until the guts are kind of dripping on the
Right.
emergency room
Out.
floor.
Yes. They're dripping out of their body.
Yeah, and so at that point they're hyperventilating, their heart rate's like 180, they're sweating, they're not sleeping, they've already lost 10 or 15 pounds, and they've been crying a lot, and they've
No.
been having a lot of deep
Alone, usually.
alone.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have any guys in their life or any women to talk to, and so they incessantly try to have conversations with her to
Yeah.
get to the bottom of him, because in the end he's an engineer, he's an astronaut, he's a hero, he's going to fix this thing.
Right.
If he only gets enough data, he's going to fix it.
Gonna fix it. Yeah. And I know as a woman that when a man gets into that fixing mode, right, it's in a way the antithesis of what has me feel connected to him deeply in my heart, right? It's not what has me feel loved or cared for or wanted. It's what has me start to feel like I'm being analyzed or seen as a science experiment.
Mm-hmm. We hear words like, you're so controlling, I feel so manipulated, you're so inauthentic, I see you trying to change and I don't trust it. And so these are some of the potholes guys step in.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So first they breathe. Then I imagine, but you tell me, right? I imagine there's a kind of, as they're breathing, they're slowing down and they're able to really assess the situation a little bit more, like what has happened, what has caused this rift, right? And I imagine some men might go back decades and others might go back years or months, but what's next after breathing, slowing
After
down?
breathing. And the next one is a very spiritual concept too, and that is, you were born okay, you're okay at this very, very moment,
Mm-hmm.
and tomorrow morning you're going to be okay too.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a spiritual connection to a man's knowingness that even in the depth of despair and pain, whether it's in war or relationship, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to live, you're going to get through this.
Yeah.
And you have to know this at a deep level in order to slow your heart rate down so you can start thinking more clearly. Empathy, which I'm going to talk about later, is impossible. To have compassion, insight, and empathy for what her journey is absolutely impossible when you're in that desperation mode. And that's why we have to get you settled down in order to understand why this is happening, why it happens to hundreds of men every day,
Yeah.
right? And why you're not alone. So that's number 3. You're not alone, brother.
I love
Breathe.
that.
You're
Number
okay.
two, right? And number two, right? You are okay. Number three, you're not alone. And just going back to the you're okay for a moment, I mean, I've been through divorce and on the other side and actually had my partner say, you're not a romantic partner for me. I don't see you as a romantic partner for me anymore. And that took the breath out of me in many ways. But that you are okay feels so important. And actually, I see divorce as, or separation as, a huge growth journey, or some would call it a spiritual journey. And so I don't think in that moment men could probably hear, this is happening for a reason, or this is going to open you and grow you and help you have
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
experiences, you've never even dreamed of.
yeah.
So where do you go from there? Because they're not quite ready, for that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe there is, right? You're giving the background of you're okay and life is
Yeah,
going to go on. And
yeah. And they want to know what to do in the next 24 hours, the
right.
next 7 days, the next 14 days, and Christmas is coming up and her family's coming over, and should I just pretend, or this is going to suck, I hate this. So the very first thing is early triage tools to help him relax just in the next 24 hours and maybe sleep a little bit better. And then we'll get into some of the deeper work. And in the first, the number 4, I guess, if we're numbering these things, a shameless plug. I have a divorce bomb, how to diffuse the divorce bomb course we
Yeah.
can talk about later, but we go through this in chronological order in the course. But number 4 would be back off. Back off. Take a
Mm.
step backwards, just like we teach at the ranch retreat with horses, that a woman and a horse cannot feel emotionally safe. She cannot feel she cannot feel your intention of love when you're stepping on her or
Right.
into
When
her
you're
space.
coming at her.
And the only way, if you want her to feel trust, if you want her to feel more connected and more attracted, it's counterintuitive for you to take 3 steps back and take a big breath and drop the rope that
Yeah.
you've been tugging on, trying to get her to make sense to you. And when you do
Oh,
that, all of a sudden you exhale, right? You just
right.
exhaled. And a woman says, I can finally exhale. You've given me enough room to breathe.
Right.
Because it sucks for her too. It's not like it sucks
Yeah.
for her less, but the problem is, in many cases, she's been thinking about this day for 2 years. And a lot of men get caught off guard because women tend to know the end of a relationship may be coming about 2 years beforehand. And men
Mm-hmm.
today, if they hear it today, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, all of a sudden it's brand new news.
Yeah.
And he is also taken aback by her aloofness, her calmness, her coldness, and cold-heartedness, he thinks. But it's not that. It's
It's
just
not
that
that.
she's
It's
been mourning for a long time.
right. Which actually leads me to think about how this is really important for men who also never want to hear this. And again, I don't want to be fantasize that we're never going to hear I don't love you anymore, or I'm not in love with you, or I don't feel my love for you, right? It's a very human experience. But,
Yeah.
it reminds me that if a lot of women are planning the end of a relationship, or not necessarily even planning, but just feeling
Feeling.
the loss
Yeah.
of it in their hearts
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, then what you're doing and what I'm doing with men is so important because it keeps people connected rather than just drifting farther and farther apart and growing more distant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because on D-Day, the divorce bomb day, you hear that you don't listen to me, you're never there for me. 3 years ago, when my mom died, you didn't support me, and he's saying, if you would have only told me and showed me what you needed, I would have done it.
Right.
Now you're catching me off guard, and I feel blindsided. And
Right.
now I can start. So let's go tomorrow.
Right.
Let's start. And she's going,
Yeah, right. I don't trust you because the trust has been broken. And there are times there are men who, if she had just said, this is what I need you to do, they would have done it. And there are men and women too, right? This isn't just gendered, where we can hear that. We can hear someone say, this is what I want from you. But until someone's pulling away and saying, I can't do this anymore, right? We don't know what we don't know, or we didn't think it was that important. We didn't make it as important to us as it
right,
was to that
right.
person.
And we don't feel the fear in the form of a bodily pain. We don't feel the fear and the urgency
Yeah.
prior to this. And a lot of this is, one, because we're not taught relationship skills very well. We don't really understand love languages and what men and women need. But
Yeah.
there's another thing we'll get into, and that is, even if you knew it intellectually,
Mm-hmm.
even if you read all of the books on relationships and you became a student, PhD, if you didn't have an inner sense of peace, security, and worthiness inside yourself, you'll totally fuck it up.
Right.
You cannot be an effective partner when you're battling inner demons.
Boom, mic
Yeah,
drop.
yeah,
Like, right? You could read every book in the world, and if you're not actually settled in yourself and, in a way, in love with yourself, that's probably a woo-woo term for a lot of men to hear, but really believing in yourself, respecting in yourself, and then able to actually be intimate and connected and vulnerable, right? No book is actually going to walk you through that moment, or those moments where you have to do it and you have to risk and you have to see her and understand her and listen, and you have to be, willing to show yourself all of that.
mm, absolutely. I don't even know what to say to that. Boom. We'll talk about mic drop. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah.
Yeah, so how? You can read another 1,000 books and try to get to the bottom of what it means to be self-actualized and achieve a state of self-reliance and inner
Yeah.
peace and worthiness, to where you're so confident and calm. And these are words I use when I coach men: confident, calm, inner peace and groundedness, a sense of mojo, to
Yeah.
where you're so good, you are overflowing into the saucer around your cup, and you
Yeah.
serve out of that saucer, and you're able to love and give to women even when they can't love and give back.
Yeah.
And
Now, I'm just
yeah,
putting a plug in there that does not mean that you should be satisfied with a relationship where you're
absolutely.
not actually receiving, or where she's not also taking care of you and she's not loving you, and in a way where you feel that I don't want to go so far as to say devotion. I think that's a strong word, but that is even possible, right? So on the scale from adoration to devotion, there is a way that I want men to actually understand, oh, that's an experience that I can have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. An experience of a mutually shared set of values for admiration, adoration, you know, um, giving can unconditionally,
Yeah.
and going through all the intimacies. That's what everyone wants, but that's not a starting point,
Yeah.
right? Now, within a man, I say it's a place to come from. You need to be forgiving. You need to be accepting. You need to be thoughtful and considerate. You need to
Yeah.
be secure in yourself and generous. You don't get those things by demanding those. You get those things by being those things.
Yeah.
And the reason we're not those things, and I wasn't those things for many years, is because I was too gripped in my own head, insecurities about, if I give that, I could get hurt. Or I'm not
Right.
giving this until I get it back.
Yeah.
Or I'll give so much and I'll wait for her to give back. And if she doesn't, then it's a downward spiral to the
Right. It's this
bottom.
tit for
It's a
tat.
scoreboard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and this is why a lot of guys get to that day, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. She has possibly felt, if you want to move into that now, Shane,
Yeah.
you can help with why do women finally get to the point where they say those words? I just don't feel it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's disconnection. And I mean, the most plain way to put it, it's a disconnection from feeling the relationship is a source of personal um, peace and well-being, that the relationship is a safe harbor, that the relationship is a place you can trust and respect, that even when you're wounded and vulnerable, you can be taken care of.
Yeah.
And as soon as that gets eroded, women start believing that this can't possibly serve the needs I have. And the only logical, if you want to get to logic, guys, the
Yeah.
only logical conclusion she could make is that anywhere but here is going to be better for me.
Yeah.
And this is not personal. This is not that you suck and you're horrible in bed and you're a bad father and a bad husband. It's not that. It's that I personally feel unsafe and disconnected. And the only way I can get my needs met is somewhere that's not here with
Wow.
you.
Okay, that's a fascinating distinction too, right? It's not personal, and because it feels so damn
Feels so
personal.
personal. So that's step 5.
Yeah.
Don't take it personally. We
Right.
teach
Don't take it
how to,
personally.
yeah, what kind of man do you have to be, or who do you have to be to not take this personally? Because every guy goes, that's bullshit. This is very personal.
This is very personal. Right. And I love what you're saying, which is like, okay, so from this side, and we can debate personal, not personal, whatever, but from this side as a woman, if my heart isn't being cared for, if I'm not being heard and understood, if I'm not being connected with, right, then um, there is a way where I'm like, I need that, and I think most of us as human beings do, but I think women are allowed to need it more, right? Like women have been taught that that's something that's okay to need. I think a lot of
Mm,
men haven't, and so if it's not happening, then we want it, we long for that,
mm,
and right, and it can't happen through that intellect like you were saying. So I'm curious how, after the bomb went off for you, right, you did not diffuse it and it happened, how did you recognize that the tit for tat game wasn't working and the scoreboard wasn't working? How did you actually understand, oh, there's something deeper happening here?
got involved with men's work. I mean, first and foremost, and I know through your Authentic Men program work, you see guys doing this. The pain drives them into a tribe of men who have their arms open, and they feel like, you get me, like you guys have felt this too, and the whole tribe goes,
You're not
fuck yeah.
alone.
Right. And in men's work, you find out that who you were in relationship, that persona you've developed, a lot of it's bent around doing things. It's around provision, working, fixing the garbage disposal, mowing the lawn, paying bills, and just trying to be a good guy.
Yeah.
um, is not what the relationship is all about. We think that if we do all that, we should be able to get everything that was promised at the altar, which is
Right.
lifelong unconditional love and sex every fucking night. Right? And so what we learn, and what I learned, you asked me personally, when this light switch came on, which is very disconcerting for women, by the way,
Hmm.
that a smart, compassionate, caring, thinking man who's so fucking stupid for so long, in almost 2 weeks' time, has so many switches come on in his brain that makes him go, oh my God, I totally see everything now. It's like it flashes in front of you like a fast movie, and you see everything you've ever said and done wrong through a different lens. And all of a
Mm,
sudden, you have this tremendous guilt and shame and how broken you must have been and how stupid. But now that we get it, because we're fixers and engineers and astronauts, we now know with that switch flip, we can fix this. I
right.
got it now. I totally get it. Of course, he doesn't. He gets some of it.
You get some of it. Well, and I remember actually a partner saying to me, I see the light, I get it, I see what wasn't happening. And I was like, well, okay, well, that's great. And it's great to hear you say that. However, we need to rebuild the trust, right? I need to
Mm-hmm.
see that you can actually show up. I need to see that you're actually going to be this man that you're having all these revelations about. And it wasn't a challenge on my part, like a fuck you, but
Like, you
it
better show
was.
me. Yeah.
Right. But it was, you know, what's interesting? It was me coming to a deeper place of my own integrity and saying, like, if I'm going to bother being in a romantic relationship, I want it to be connected. I want us to be aligned. I want us to be on the same page. You know, otherwise, I can go do many, many other things in my life and, you know, do my work and give back to the world and take care of my kid and enjoy my girlfriends. And right, it has to be, I don't want to say better than that, but it has to be something unique and this special way that we as two human beings come together. Otherwise, why bother?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to finish the thought on this phase where a woman sees all his light switches coming on, she also has a database of 15 to 20 years of experience with him that
Right.
tells her otherwise. So she can't help but go back in her programming and go, yeah, but 19, you know, 19
1974.
you did this, and she can't help it. And another colleague told me once, Grace Cooley said that the only thing worse than a woman having her heart broken by a man in relationship is deciding to trust him again and have him do it again. And
Yeah.
because of that fear, there's a lot of tentativeness. And this is why men who are trying to save a marriage, let's say, you know, they're 42 years old, they got 3 kids, they're 16, 14, and 12, or 2 girls and a boy, and they've got a dog. And the idea of this whole thing falling apart to him is so devastating.
Oh, it's
Half
so
time with the
devastating.
kids, lose half your retirement, have to live in a crappy van down by the river eating government cheese, and all of the thoughts
Gosh.
come up. What we try to do is get him to a point of saying, you may save this. You may actually become a very calm, loving, secure man with a woman who appreciates you, and it may be her.
Yeah.
But there's a process to this, and it only happens when you back away and when you slow down and you look
Yes.
inside. So
Yes.
she can believe it and feel it and trust it. And the other part of this story is that it may not happen with the divorce
Right.
rate at
It may
40 to
not be her.
50%. You may be a happy, confident, passionate, caring man who has a different person in his life. And I have no apologies about saying that. That happened to me after
Yeah.
28 years of marriage. I have somebody new in my life who's a
Right.
very different kind of human being than the woman I was married to.
Right. And you
So,
may be a calm, confident, caring man who goes through heartbreak for a while, for some months or for some
mm,
years, and actually, you know, discovers the deeper parts of yourself and what's even more meaningful to you. And right, we all put it back together somehow, most of us. I mean, it's not true that we all do. I feel very strongly about supporting men to not be alone because the suicide rate is so high and
yeah,
depression is so high. And so it's not that everybody puts it back together, but with support, I think, you know, most of us do. And like you said, you are okay and you make it through. And
yeah.
there's some deep, deep lessons that happen through this.
Yeah, and that's the learning for the men who want to grow from this as opposed to just survive it.
Yeah.
Survival is saying the quickest way to get over a cowgirl is to get under another one real quick. That's that's what guys say to each other. Fuck her. You know, there's a million women out there who will fuck you.
Right.
Just get over it.
I'm laughing,
And,
but that's like, it's horrifying and, you know, horrifying and hilarious at the same time,
right.
right?
And that's not growth oriented, right? That's just solution oriented. Get over her so you can get under somebody else real quick. And those are the guys who don't grow, and those are the guys who continue
Right.
having miserable lives. But
Yeah. They
the
stay
guys,
asleep and miserable and
yeah.
mhm.
And so the growth is if you stay married, and as you enter into number 6 here, is realize what limbo land is. You know, you're not going to die. You
Yeah.
take a breath. You're okay. You back off, and all of a sudden, guys enter this zone of limbo land where she's thinking about things.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
considering things. She's distant. She's not real communicative. Sometimes she's staying out later than usual, and now you're in the state of uncertainty. And so, step 6 is create your own certainty.
Mm.
Stop thinking that you're on a seesaw up in the air, dangling your feet, and she's at the other end laughing and pointing at you, not letting you off of this seesaw of uncertainty. Limbo land is a time for healing and for working, and it's for you to do something that you've never done before, to learn, to read, to get with people you've never thought you'd talk to finally be as vulnerable as you've ever wanted to be, to cry in front of another person,
Or ever
right?
wanted to be, and maybe you've not
Yeah.
wanted to be, but as vulnerable as actually, will create incredible connections in your life.
Yeah. And I'll even argue that want to be is a secret with men, right? And a
Oh,
lot of the ways I connect with men is when we're at a movie with a woman or watching TV
yeah.
and a certain scene comes on. You guys don't always know what that scene is. It could be a war scene when a
Right.
guy dies in his brother's arms, or it could
Yeah.
be a dog that gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
And we have this flood of pressure behind our eyes and we want to cry hard,
Yeah.
and the lump in our throat comes out and our lips quiver.
Yeah.
And we turn our head because our face is flushed red. And I'm doing it right now as I'm talking.
Ah.
And we don't want you to know, because we know if you know we're that vulnerable, you'll probably beat us up. It's not personal to you. It's because our experience is that we get beat up.
Well,
And
and that's a really powerful distinction, right? Is again, it's not personal, and you have been beaten up in the past and
yeah,
told you're a pussy and told you're a wimp and all of that, right? And so then it's a huge risk to show that to a woman.
yeah,
And it's so important because, right, not only because women are longing for that, but
yeah.
also because it's your own, I don't even know the depth of it. You could probably say this better, but right, your own self-worth, your own, it's who you are,
It's the
rather than
truth.
having to hide or pretend. Exactly, it's the
It's
truth.
the truth. Yeah. And as Brene Brown says, that some women have been taught, some men have been taught that their women would rather see them die than fall off their white horse.
Yeah.
This is a real thing. And when you get into limbo land, a guy starts pouring out everything now.
Yeah.
He's thinking that because he wasn't vulnerable before, he has more tears and more vulnerability and more honesty than he's ever had. And he
Yeah.
starts getting diarrhea of the mouth.
Yeah.
He just starts talking blah, blah, blah. And every day is a 40-minute deep conversation with her, and all she's doing is rolling her eyes saying, I don't know, just give me some time, give me
Yes, I
space.
need some space. I need.
And yeah, so that leads into, where do you go if you can't get into her space? Where does a man have to go if you're not going to kill yourself, right? And we do talk to guys who think like,
Also,
man, I think about this. It's only a fleeting thought. Once a man understands that there is a place to go that he hasn't gone yet,
yes,
decides into the arms of her validation, her
yes,
approval, her affirmation, and her promise of fidelity and lifelong love, right? Which is not a very safe place to be, because
no,
when you rely on that for your sense of well-being and your inner security, you're
right. When
always
that
at
goes
risk.
away, then you
Yeah.
are fucked.
Yeah. You make it sound like you're more worried about the house and the kids and your money. The truth is, men's deepest fear is that they're a failure, that they weren't strong enough to do this, that they're undesirable, unattractive, and they failed. And there's nothing worse than feeling like you're a failure.
Yeah.
But there is a place to go, and that's back inside yourself, to find out that part of you that is okay, even if she's not.
No matter what.
Yeah. Often I'll use the analogy that aliens have just come down and they've abducted her. They didn't hurt her.
Hmm.
She's not hurt, but she's gone. This is the same as a coma or dying of cancer or dying in a plane crash. The aliens are better because it's less violent, but she's gone. And you've got a 16, 14, and a 12-year-old at home, and you're a single dad with the same dog and now a mortgage of your own,
Wow.
and she's gone. She's never coming back. Who do you have to be, and how do you have to be as a man at this very moment for the next 24 hours? Because you just found out she's gone.
Yeah.
Now you're going to grieve. The stages of grief come and go, but at some point beyond stage 5, which is acceptance, is stage 6, which is, who am I now?
Yes.
Who shall I be? And I tell guys, this is who you must be right now. Even in this sense of this lump in your throat and the water behind your eyes trying to come out, you have to find that man that you would be, even if you were alone, and understand that he is a powerful motherfucker.
Right.
He's strong.
So
he's
powerful,
worthy.
with the tears, with the
With
right,
all of
with
it.
the emotions, with all of
Yeah.
that vulnerability. That is part of the power.
Yeah. And you know how we know this? That when we get into the stage 6 part, guys find out that the canary in the coal mine is his kids. When he starts getting this breathing back and his groundedness and his masculine mojo back in check, the first thing that happens is his kids can't leave him alone.
Yeah. The
They love it.
kids. Yeah.
They also don't have a database of shit he's done wrong, right? Like his
Yeah.
wife does. So
Right. Well, that's beautiful, right? They're more in the moment. And so they're
they're in the
starting to
moment.
respond to him in a
Yeah.
way where they're like, they can feel his love.
Yeah. His friends feel it. His mother feels it. And even at work, and I know you talk about, power in the boardroom, even at work, this
Yeah.
man shows up more clear in himself and everyone starts paying attention more. Everything starts flowing. And now he's back at this place where I'm getting so much better and she still hates me. No, but she doesn't hate you. She's in a totally different place right now, and you have to accept that. And because he's used to controlling his life, controlling people and circumstances and conditions, and having expectations and having people follow his rules, he thinks he can do this with her. And it's part of how he got there, right?
Yeah.
Most of us, I'll just say me.
Wow. I'm just recognizing, right, the discomfort of not knowing and of having to let go of the path, there are steps here, right? But it's a letting go of the steps you've learned your whole life, right? What makes you a man and what makes you a good person and a strong person. And it's like a free fall.
Yeah. We get to stage 7 and she hasn't left or divorced him. I'm making these numbers up, by the way, but this is the process we teach. Stage 7. And she says, I see what you're doing. I just need time. I've told the lawyer to not do the divorce thing yet, to not file, but we just need time apart and to grow. And then he goes, well, I'm going on a date with her Saturday. She agreed to go out with me alone. And it's the first time we've been alone together for 3 months. And I'm really excited, but I'm scared. Can you tell me exactly the words I should use? That they want a script.
Yes.
They want a script, and I get it, because they don't want to fuck this up. They even say that, I can't fuck this up. Yeah. So tell me what to say.
Which is, oh my God, so much pressure, right? The pressure that you're putting on yourself.
And so this stage 7 is finding out that it's not what you do, it's who you are. Yeah. And it's a mistake we made for the first 20 years. We were trying to do things to be loved, instead of being the kind of man who is lovable, respectable, trustable.
Who is loved.
On this date, it's a 3-hour date at Olive Garden, whatever. All you have to do is be a man who makes eye contact. I'm looking at you right now in the camera. Who listens, who responds, who's curious, who's generous, who's light, who's calm, who's flirty, who's just be a man who is in that skin. That's your
honest, right?
Honest. Yeah, I forgot that.
I love that. I mean, all of these things, this is amazing. And I can see this is where I come in often, because this is where a man is like, okay, you're telling me that I could be curious, I could just listen, I could be, and then there's a stuckness that could happen, right? Of if I can't do the thing I used to do, I don't always know how to do something else. And I do this with women too, because there are women, right, on the other side. Women are stuck in the kind of, they get into this rigidity, they get into that place of not trusting, they get into a place of being, my eyes are doing it, but you can't see it, right? Like I guess it's a mistrustful.
Yeah.
And so
it's skepticism, doubt. It's we feel it is criticism, and a lack of trust, and it feels cold and shivery, and it's unavailable. There's armored up. Some women say, I've armored up. At least they're honest. I've armored up, and I'm not sure how to take it off.
I'm not sure. Well, and that's actually really such a powerful, important point, right? Sometimes women don't know how to take it off, and sometimes men don't know how to make that shift, like from being up in my head to actually engaging in my heart and actually being in my body and actually connecting and being intimate and actually letting someone in to see me, right? Yeah. Those aren't necessarily easy. So I don't want you, if you're listening, to beat yourself up, that it's not just a 5-minute process of, okay, I'm going to go from doing something I've done my whole life to suddenly actually, it's not being a different person, but it's actually being more of you than you've ever really had access to.
When men ask, how do I do that? How do I help melt away the armor? How do I get through a crack and have her see who I really am, to trust me? It's counterintuitive, and they do not trust it when I say the only way is for you to create space, is to back away. Lean back. You see me now. You can't see me. I'm leaning back in my chair, just a little bit further away. We teach this in the ranch retreat. The release of pressure is the most lovely feeling you can give her.
Right.
The release
I
of
don't
having,
need you to love me, want me, right? You want that, of course, but I don't need that to be okay in that
yeah.
moment.
And even in a 3-hour dinner at Olive Garden, you're tempted to get her to answer logical questions. What are
Right.
you thinking?
Why?
Why are you feeling it? How long is this going to go on? What else do I have to do? Where is this going? Blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And that's pressure. It's like pins and needles in her face. And so we teach men to just breathe and relax. And it's counterintuitive that doing less is doing more. And it's
Yeah.
hard for a dude to trust that because he's never done that in his life.
Yeah.
Right? Never done less to do more.
Yeah. And you know what? I just thought of like the one of the simple shifts can be going from what you just said, like why and why is this happening? And right there's, well, first of all, there's a tone to that because it is curiosity, but it's like
Aggression. There's
a
always
hungry,
aggression.
aggressive
Yeah.
curiosity. And I just thought, okay, what if one of those shifts was I'm going to actually get to know this woman in a way that I never have.
Mm.
Right. I mean, I believe that even when we're in relationship with someone for 20, 30 years, there are, millions of things we don't know about each other. And for most people, I don't want to say most people, many people I've met in this world, right, there isn't a practice of deep curiosity of what is inspiring to you, what are you hurting about, what do you want, what do you need, who who is exciting to you, like when you look out into the world, right, that we don't oftentimes, we're not taught to ask these deeper questions. And I was just imagining that shift from grilling a woman to actually getting curious and being like, all right, if we're kind of taking this in a new way, I want to know who you really are.
Yeah. You just described step 8, which is a major shift. The only person, the only human being who can have that shift, I think, is one who has realized a certain sense of groundedness in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
that I can be open enough now to be curious. I can trust myself in my own emotions. We call it emotional mastery,
Yep.
spiritual confidence to know that you're okay.
Yep.
And then from there, you can be curious and say, I don't want to save what we had because what we had, let's admit it wasn't
Wasn't good
perfect.
for either one of us, right? It
So
wasn't working great for either one of us,
and if we're
obviously.
not, yeah, and if we're not getting divorced tomorrow, the only third option is let's carve out something brand new. You can't do that from a place of insecurity. And so,
No.
even though people think I'm a confidence coach or a mojo coach, those are fun words to use. But the truth is, we're insecurity coaches,
Mm.
and good guys to great men. And what we do is dive into the depth of what makes a man afraid to reach the stage you just described. I really want to get to know this woman, because those are the exact words we hear from guys when they hit stage 8.
Yeah.
I've decided I'm going to pretend I never knew her.
Mm.
And I'm going to become a totally new person that
Yeah.
I want to be. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to lean in and listen.
Yes. And most people, right? This is so good. Most men and women and people of all genders, I think when we enter into a relationship, we haven't been taught the relationship skill of why are we doing this? Right. And beyond, oh, I want to have a family, or beyond, I think you're hot
Mm-hmm.
and, I'm
Yeah.
attracted to you, right? Like, what are we doing this for? And so I'm really reappreciating you and the depth that you bring, and the wake up call that you are for men, that it's not just, okay, let's hop to the side here and do something a little different. It's like, oh no, we're going down the rabbit hole, into this place of who am I really? Who is she really? What are we here for? Why are we doing this? Why does this matter so much to us?
Mm. Thank you, Shana.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. As usual,
Yeah.
we could keep going for hours and days. And I think this is a good place to wrap up. And what do you want to leave men with? What do you feel inspired to leave them with?
Uh, Something I put in Facebook today. I wanted to say thank you to my community. I have a number of different Facebook pages, and as I had my fingers on the keyboard, and I wanted to say something, and all that was coming out was Hallmark type crap.
Mm.
And I just started typing, and by the time I got to like the 12th line, I said, I'm still not sure what I want to say here, but because the title, I made love and gratitude, which are two words I wasn't used to using, I don't want to say with love and gratitude, happy holidays. What I want to say is, I love you,
Mm.
brother. I love you, Shana James.
Mm.
And now my face is getting red again because I said it out loud. But I want them to know that it's okay to say that. That
Yes.
it that you need to become bold enough to challenge the world to just try to shame you for being whole, for being honest and speaking your truth.
Yeah.
And when you get there, when you feel that strength inside you, you'll fucking say anything
Yeah.
and you'll do anything. And you'll no longer care what somebody's thinking about you. And even in the middle of a possible divorce, you'll know you're okay.
Yes. I love that. It always fascinates me that men, so many men have this kind of boldness and braveness that they'll jump out of a helicopter or ski down a mountain that is just looks like a wall of it, like all these things that seem so fucking terrifying to me. And then to really get that saying, I love you, and actually risking being rejected, can be scarier than any of those things. And again, going back to where you're coming from, right? That ultimately getting to that place where you're not afraid of being shamed because you get that there's nothing to be ashamed of, right? That deep place within
You
yourself.
lose the fear. You lose the fear of being judged. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me here today.
Thank you for being here. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word alive, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.